Akademiks. Can't ride no.
It's Epstein time, y'all. Now, chat. Now. Following the court order, chat. The U.S. Justice Department released millions of files associated with the Epstein Files. Let me try to break it down like succinctly, but that you guys can understand if you haven't kept up with it. It's been a lot of politics, okay? The Attorney General at one point, by the way, before Trump got in, a lot of people, even like before the former FBI director or assistant director, Kash Patel is the director, but the assistant director was, he's a guy he actually streams on Rumble, Dan Bongino. Like, he was saying, we got to get these Epstein files out. Why are the Epstein files important? So this idea that Epstein had an island and that essentially he was trafficking underage teenagers, right? Not only for his own personal pleasure, but he was supposedly swaying and influencing a lot of other powerful people that had that perversion of possibly being pedophilic. So there was pedophiles that he was serving, and he was pretty much their guy. And he supposedly, and this is a theory, right? We break it down. And he was supposedly recruiting them. He would recruit these young girls to pleasure these guys on his island, right? Who were these guys? Mostly famous, high-powered guys, and he supposedly networked, and this was a secret, almost cabal, where no one really said anything. And even when he did get in trouble at some point, at first down in Florida, he caught a local case. It was swept under the rug, and I've watched a documentary on it, but you guys should really look into some of the stuff. The way how that case was resolved and how it was sealed, has been no handling of any case of that nature that's been ever handled like that. Why would that be? We all know the legal system definitely favors people of certain skin colors or maybe ethnicities, and definitely, how much money you have, but that was really odd, right? Like, yeah, Diddy got some money, but like, we're hearing about the freak-offs. They sealed everything. Now, they've always pacified people with, the reason why, that happened is because of, we got to protect the victims. And victims are kids. They're minors. Like, we got to protect them. So nothing could be seen. But it got odd because parents of some of these alleged kids and parents of kids that supposedly were victims that never were included in some of these prosecutions, they were speaking out. They're saying, hey, listen, we want to know what was up. And not only do we want to know what was up, we have more information that we think this guy should be taken off or his freedom should be taken away from him. Most of those people were either coddled, ignored, but it was clearly seen that there was a lot of people that cared about this Jeffrey Epstein guy that they wouldn't fully prosecute him, and that was alarming. Now, that theory became, not only is Jeffrey Epstein providing a service to these high, powerful men that are interested in, these women or let's not call them women, these kids. What essentially happened is people believe that he started collecting data, emails, and videos of the encounter of these men with these kids, and he later used for blackmail, which kept him out of jail for a long time. Now, subsequently, if you don't know the story of Jeffrey Epstein, he was actually charged by the Department of Justice, and he was charged federally, and he was actually arrested. And, he was arrested. And by the way, I want to, for people who don't know the Epstein file, or not Epstein, the Epstein story, I'm going to give you some details that you might be like, we've heard this before. So just bear with me a bit. But I do want to explain it for if I'm telling you the whole story and if you've never heard of this. So when he got caught in Florida, the case got resolved. They basically gave him a slap on the wrist, right? I forgot if he even had to register as a sex offender, but he had to do some jail time. The jail time he did allowed him to leave the jail. This is serious. This is like no joke. He could leave the jail for up to half the day, as long as it was for work purposes. Basically had a curfew. He still had contact with people in the outside world. He just only couldn't talk to the minors. And essentially was business going on as usual. What person do you know, right? Even subsequently, Harvey Weinstein, like we're talking about billionaires here. Harvey Weinstein, if we're talking about Diddy, anybody else who, if you want to say it's only money that makes his situation different, it's got to be more than money, right? Got to be more than money. So this guy had this really special process, not only in the courts, but even how he was arrested and dealt with. It led to people speculating there's a cover up here. Eventually got arrested. And before, really anything substantial could come out of, his cases. And when I mean substantial, like maybe a plea deal where, obviously he wasn't going to get too much favorable shit, but maybe he could be like, hey, listen, I'll tell you all the people who I was helping out, right? It's kind of like, what's the name of that movie where he's like, where it's like, it's bigger than Wesley Snipes. He's on the stand. He's like, it's bigger than, what's the fucking saying? I can't remember it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But like, what's the name of that movie? I'm like forgetting it. It's Wesley Snipes. Oh yeah, New Jack City, right? Yeah, and he's like, it's bigger than me, and he basically starts snitching everybody out. They thought Jeffrey Epstein was gonna have a moment like that. Anyway, magically, Jeffrey Epstein, under the supposed watchful eyes of the federal government, or the Bureau of Prisons actually, in supposedly a 24-hour monitoring situation, right? He was being monitored 24 hours. There was cameras and other things that were, constantly monitoring him. Is it because he's dangerous? Not necessarily. But with some of these things, and, they usually put some monitoring on people who are facing life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, because that's automatically candidates for possible suicide. Anyway, despite claiming they had really high surveillance on him while he was locked up, he magically comes up dead. He hung himself, allegedly. People has been skeptical about him allegedly hanging himself in the sense of, no, he didn't. Maybe somebody killed him. Now, to get into some of this possible political malfeasance, because I'm one that don't like to lean into cynicism. And cynicism means, to be cynical means like, I'm like, I think there's aliens walking outside. Like, you're just kind of like out there a bit, right? So that's what cynicism is. I don't know if I'm using vocabulary. If Lil Baby's in here, bro, just donate and I'll read out one by one if I use any big words and I lose you. So, or I'll give you the definition. So I'm not someone who leans into cynicism. I'm pretty much a logical person, right? And I usually believe in, oftentimes the easiest explanation is the right explanation is the easiest one rather than making up random theories. However, this is like really different. And some of this possible or, so people think the government killed him, right? And they're saying that the government figured out how many people were involved, how powerful they are, they killed him. Now, I would not lean into most of this type of theories about political malfeasance that could be used to like say whatever about dude. But it kind of would make sense when you start hearing about the people he used to deal with. The people he dealt with and the people who were his friends ended up ruling the world. They are the modern day biggest figures in life. They have determined the history and the fate of the United States before his death and also after his death. And it would probably be very much in their interest if Jeffrey Epstein was not alive to speak and possibly speak to any type of wrongdoing they may have done. So here we are. We're at a place where there was a bunch of investigation done. They essentially arrested a guy for child sex trafficking. They arrested his wife, Ghislaine Maxwell, for assisting, and they accused him of having a client list, except they didn't want to give us the clients. Why? The clients are equally as guilty. Well, the investigation into it have always been kind of fucked up, and there's been a lot of politics with it. It's one of the most political cases we've ever seen. Let me give you an anecdote right before we get into it, and I'll tell you right after the anecdote how we get to this page. By the way, you guys can look up this page. It's called, it's listed on the website justice.gov/Epstein. Justice.gov/Epstein. If you're over 18, you can hit yes, and you can see the same things I'm about to show you. I do want to remind you something, and never think the United States is above any type of action. But if you ever wonder why, how these things could happen, I'm going to use a story that, it hits a little bit close to home for me. But I've heard the story, but this is a true story. And it just shows you how government may play a part in certain shit, but you'll never really find the truth. And I know you're going to be like, come on, man, not another Jamaican story, but it doesn't matter. So in Jamaica, right, a lot of these politicians were accused of being corrupt in the 90s and this and third. What would happen is, so the U.S., just like how, in Venezuela, we just basically went there, kicked down a door, killed everybody, grabbed the nigga out of his bed. We dropped some bombs, bombed up their shit, and we just left. And we said, yo, y'all pick a new leader, and we better like the new leader. That was kind of bullying. I ain't going to lie. That was kind of bullying. But I ain't going to lie. I kind of fuck with it. It's still bullying, though. What the U.S. usually does, because they have interest. We have interest, we're the U.S., right? Hey, there's an election going on. We interfere with a lot of people's elections, which is kind of hilarious because we were so upset of the thought that Russia was trying to interfere with our elections. Why would you want to interfere with an election? Well, if you could control the perspective or the side or the party that's leading the country, you could get them to do your bidding, or you could get them to basically just, be a shill of yours. What America doesn't lack is money, right? So what they do is they fund other things. Like, we've been accused of funding a proxy war. And I'm using Jamaica here as an example. They've funded politicians' campaigns, right? We know money wins elections. We've seen it in the United States. That's why super PACs and that type of stuff happen. So what used to happen in the late 90s and 80s is that when the government, who was already fighting a war on drugs, and Caribbean countries were being used by Colombia and all these other places to land planes that would then take off to Miami and other places, the U.S. government needed to know that these countries, and most of the countries outside of Puerto Rico and St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, outside of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all those countries usually are colonies or somehow directly related to either Spain or the UK. I hope you guys know a little bit of world politics. So Jamaica is a British colony, right? Pretty much the Queen technically could make a decree and Jamaicans would have to follow it. They haven't done it in a long time, but they technically could. The U.S. really got nothing to do with Jamaica. But to have influence, Jamaica's a poor country. You fund shit. You give them money, and what I say, niggas are as low as the last meal, whoever paid them last, right? So they would fund people's agendas. Okay, I'm going to try to speed this up. They fund these politicians, and the politicians win. Now, these politicians, a lot of times, because Jamaica's a poor country, they all get corrupt. They get funded by American other interests, but in Jamaica, what's really running a lot of shit, really poor communities, is drug money, right? So you might have a guy who, controls a certain place and he's cool with the Colombians or whatever, and he got the money. And that's where, there's a term called garrison, because it's kind of it's like a Robin Hood mentality. The drug dealer is like the boss. And in those countries, for example, in Colombia, I'm pretty sure Pablo Escobar was the boss. Fuck the cops, fuck that governor. Pablo Escobar is going to be the boss, right? All right, so let me get up to it. Essentially, there was this guy. His name was Christopher Dudus Coke. And actually, no, his father, they called him Jim Brown. He was a drug dealer. And essentially, he worked with corrupt politicians to bring drugs into Jamaica for them to turn a blind eye and bring drugs, guns, and other things. Yes, the politicians were working with the drug dealer. Essentially, what happened is that the majority of what the byproduct of that is, and this is how you see Venezuela, why you see what's happening. Most of the stuff coming into Jamaica eventually ended up in New York and Miami. And now the United States start looking at Jamaica. What the fuck's going on there? So what happened is they identified that this guy was corrupt. And the government was actually protecting the guy. They weren't trying to arrest him. It's like a drug dealer just chilling down there, right? So what happened is that the drug dealer, the U.S. puts pressure on Jamaica saying, we're going to stop funding you. we're going to stop giving you some money. Y'all got to arrest that guy. That guy is sending guns, this and third. You ever heard about the shower posse? There's a lot of crime going on because these Jamaicans are doing X, Y, and Z. Jamaica as a government, it's like U.S. is they twist people's arms. So they're like, no, we're going to do it. Just give us a second. And they keep twisting. Like, oh, you got it. They arrest the guy. Now, here's the thing. And I'm comparing this guy to Epstein, not on a sexual level, but as political malfeasance, corruption. So they arrest the guy because the USA wants the guy. He is to be extradited to the United States to stand trial for drug crimes and also running a organized criminal gang. Here's the problem. There's nationwide concerns via politicians and others. If this guy goes over to the United States, once he leaves Jamaica, what he'll do, he'll say, you know, I ain't do this by myself. That government official helped me. That government official helped me. That government official helped me. So there was a thought that even though this guy was a gangster, remember the politicians are not gangsters. The drug guy is a gangster. But there was thoughts once, because here's the thing, if you ever watch Narcos, this is the reason why Pablo Escobar built a prison in Colombia. It's a joke. Nobody wants to come to the United States. They're going to lock you up in some 24, I forgot what's that, Supermax prison. Nigga, that is not fun. Like, yo, you see the prison that Pablo Escobar built for himself down there in Colombia? That nigga was coolin'. That shit was better than a mansion. Yo, Pablo Escobar built a prison. He had bitches. They were playing. They were gambling. That's what's happening. So these guys, they never want to get extradited. Extradition is like the worst thing. So the U.S. puts pressure on Jamaica. We want him over here. He got to come to New York court. Days before his extradition, he dies. And he dies in a cell. No, he didn't hang himself. He got burned to death in a cell. Now, I'm telling you this story because when you think about political malfeasance, it's like, are you going to wait till this nigga go to the United States and he starts snitching on y'all? Or y'all going to kill him here and nobody ever finds out? If you understand that story, you might not know the characters, but that's a real story I just told you that happened in Jamaica. That is the idea behind the theories of Jeffrey Epstein. And why I gave you the story is that it's not like it never happened before. So this idea that a guy knows so much or has blackmail info on everybody, and finally he puts himself in a trap that he can't get out of, and the government has to give him up, or people in the government have to give him up. But now you realize giving him up might mean he gives you up. How do you deal with that person? That person got to go. Remember I said in that other, and by the way, if you think I'm lying, just type in Jim Brown burned in his jail cell. How you get burned up in your jail cell? Well, his nickname was Jim Brown. It's Lester Lloyd Coke. There's actually, I don't think it's a gory image, but yeah, there's a picture somewhere of the jail cell. Is it over here? Which I think people are like, how the hell you get burned up in a jail cell? Like, come on, clearly somebody killed you, right? All right. So now we're back to the Epstein Files. So Jeffrey Epstein's been dead for several years now. And there's been a loud call to say he died before he could tell us all the other creeps. Also, the government, after charging and convicting Ghislaine Maxwell, which is his mistress, kind of wife, they've kind of said, well, we got rid of the let's move on. And people are like, no. Y'all said there was a client list. Y'all said other people. Where's the other people at? Like, yo, if one's dead and the other one's in prison, throw them all in prison. And the government's like, we can't. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's talk about and people like, no. So it's been back and forth. Now, every time a political party has came into power, especially in the last, I want to say about like 4 or 5 years. Actually, probably a little bit more, probably last 8 years. There's been like almost a promise of, yo, we're going to get this stuff released. We're going to tell you who the creeps are. We've heard about a list. Who's on the list? Who are the people who used to require the services of children? Now, this is a really odd situation here, chat. Because one of the reasons why, and people theorize, but I also agree with, that we haven't had much motion till pretty much now, is this isn't a partisan issue. Okay? It's not that it was a bunch of, it's not that it was only Democrats hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. And the Republicans were like, oh, we never hung with him. They got Republicans and Democrats kicking it with him on the island. They had rappers, athletes. They got goddamn comedians. They had everybody up in there. The freaks come out at night. Everything was popping over there. So what ends up happening, and this is a theory, we didn't get much released because even though, like, Trump hates the Democrats and Democrats hate Trump, they all might be a little bit guilty. And it's one of those things, be like, we go battle with other shit. We just can't leak this shit. So that's been the thought. However, after there was Congress got, pretty much like forced to, Trump act like he was going to do it. And they kind of like did some shit. They were dragging their feet. Then they did some shit, but it was mad redacted. Then we heard it was more. And then there was some congressional hearings. And there was an interview with supposedly Ghislaine Maxwell where, instead of having the files, like we were going to take her words for it. And she was like, yo, Trump never did nothing. And we just don't know who did what. And we're hearing maybe Bill Gates. And then we're hearing about like, was it Bill Gates or Bill Clinton? But finally we have something. And it's still a little bit redacted, but they're claiming this is probably the least redacted documents ever. So here we go. Congress created a law, and it's called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That's pretty simple, right? So this is a law that they created. And this particular law is for us to get this information, and basically the time expired that they had to provide it. So here's the full library. There's court records. There's DOJ disclosures. There's FOIA records, which is Freedom of Information Act records. And there is go to House disclosure if we want to. Now, obviously, here we are, and there's probably so much things, right? Now, if you look at this, it goes to Doe 103. So look at all these. These supposedly are the kids. And I think these are civil suits, though. These are like civil suits. There's grand jury stuff. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, chat. There is a lot of stuff. Maxwell versus the estate. This was filed after his death because, she started suing for certain shit because, resources or whatever. State of Florida versus Epstein. There's a lot of stuff, okay? Now, I implore you guys, if you guys are interested in what I just said, for you guys to take your time and go through it. And honestly, it would probably take me about a full 12 hours to go through the majority of this. It's voluminous. It's supposedly over 1 million pages in documents. I can't sit here and read it all. So I am going to try to nitpick a few things, and then we're going to also kind of hone in on a few interesting things that will pique our interest based on what we cover. We cover hip hop, right? There are a few rappers mentioned and named in this. Now, I do want to give one disclosure before I go forward, and this might seem like it's a disclosure or a disclaimer actually to make sure I don't get sued, but it might work for both because I'm also not a liar. Even I think you guys should know our character at this time. Like, this is part of the reason I'm so disgusted with that dude with Lil Baby, right? I meant to say Lil Baby. The nigga lied. You know what I mean? Like, bro, I'll admit I got swung, but don't lie that you hit me. But me, I like to be truthful. So even though people think I have something against Jay Z, I got nothing. His company isn't a good friend of mine, I would say. But like, I don't necessarily hate Jay Z that I would ever make up something that I knew was false. So, I want to be fair to everybody. And even though I feel my enemies would never do the same with me. And they've never done the same with me, right? You know, like, but it's my character and, you know, this is my reputation. We are going to read some stuff about Pusha T and also Jay Z. I want to make it very clear. And these things, and in some of these documents that's listed here, they're unverified reports from people that are either calling in tips or who may have had conversation with law enforcement, but it never turned to charges. So I want to be very clear. I do not want to, you know, again, I'm not doing this just to make sure I get sued. I just want to be very clear. It's up to you to make up your mind, right? Now, there are some people that love the term, you know, like, you ever see the Kendrick fans when, like, you defend Drake? They're like, of course you would defend a PDF. You probably weird too. I wonder if those people are going to take the same type of thing about Jay Z. Is anyone who would maybe look at this and say, nah, you know, I need more info about it, whatever? Are they defending Jay Z or what? So it's going to be up for interpretation. I'm going to skip to the relevant thing that we care about, and then there's some videos and even an interview we're going to get to. So chat, I hope you guys are locked in. It's 2:20 a.m. I am not tired. Are you guys tired? My mouth is getting a little bit dry, but, you know, I got a little bit I got that Down Julio and that Red Bull up in here. My ice melted, so it's a little watery. Okay. So, Pusha T. Go here. Bet. All right, bet. So we're here. So cool. So this is a FBI crisis intake form that's filled out. We don't know who's filled out by. It's redacted. But the time that it was received was on, what is this, July 10th, 2019. And this is early in the morning. Now, it's Eastern time, and they're saying that, so this is a call. And it's very important to know that. It's not like somebody walked in from the hospital or walked into the hospital and the hospital called the FBI. They're saying somebody called the FBI National Threat Operations Center to identify herself as a victim of sex abuse by Jeffrey Epstein and others. They provided this information that in 1994, we don't know what this is, redacted, revealed herself as a past victim of sexual abuse by Epstein. This person described the abuse that occurred during parties. Wow. So-and-so further identified so-and-so as a friend of so-and-so. In approximately 1996, so-and-so resided with so-and-so in so-and-so. It's pretty helpful, right? And an unknown man abducted so-and-so from her home, whence she later awoke in the presence of Harvey Weinstein and Sean Carter. While Weinstein inserted his fingers into her whatever, so-and-so believes she was in Epstein's mansion in Florida. It's estimated that she was abducted on several occasions, awakened each time in an opulent indoor setting, which means big house, and she was suffering from sex abuse on multiple of those occasions. So this person's claiming they got abducted a couple times and they woke up. At one particular time, they woke up and it was Harvey Weinstein. Now, I'm wondering how this connects to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Harvey Weinstein, there's a Steen with both of them, right? Epstein and Weinstein. Weinstein is known to be a perverted movie, like not really a director, but like he funded movies and he used his power that could cast women, and he basically took advantage of a lot of actor or actresses and other people with his power and money. So, you know, what they're claiming, he's like Diddy on steroids for what they claim Diddy was for music, what they claim, because none of that actually came out in court. But Weinstein was supposedly doing that in movies or in the film industry. Okay, they're saying she was estimated that she was abducted on seven occasions. Waking each time in an opulent indoor setting, they suffered from sex abuse on multiple of those occasions in which Epstein participated. They recalled Leon Black and William Barr, the current U.S. Attorney General, being present during some of the occasions of abuse. In approximately 2006, so-and-so last recalled being abused by Epstein. Okay? On each occasion, so-and-so believed she was drugged, clouded her memory, and attributed the drugging as frequently performed by persons assigned as handlers, who she described as persons who established friendships with victims. Among her handlers, so-and-so identified the artist Pusha T. It's kind of odd. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is odd. Because, I'm pretty sure a defense of Pusha T and Jay Z is going to be like, this is some lunatic, like just like that girl that's seemingly may have been a little bit autistic or slow that sued Jay Z and Diddy and claimed that she went to the award show by herself and Diddy and then brought her to a party and then she woke up or she went in the room and Jay Z and everybody was in there. Then she ran out naked and the father even came out and said, I don't remember me coming to pick her up. I don't know about that. And I think safe to say on that woman may have kind of been a little bit cuckoo, right? Right? So that's usually a defense. Like, yo, if this is a hotline, right? So it's not like they're going to the cops and the cops are doing rape tests or whatever the case is and even doing some due diligence. Like, this is like a tip line. Could be like some cuckoo person. Here's what gets a little bit interesting. You're mentioning Weinstein, then you mention Jay Z and Pusha T. I just don't feel like they're all in the same world. But then you also mention, at least at the time, they said Leon Black and William Barr, who were the current current United States Attorney General. Okay, so let me look up that last name, William Barr. When did they serve? All right, let me look it up right now. William Barr. Okay, so William Barr was an attorney general from 2019 to 2020. So this person, according to the tip, the current U.S. Attorney General, and they don't really put a time. I want to see was there a time on it? Okay, all right, so this is interesting. So it looked like, when they were trying to find additional victims, someone calls in. It's kind of like setting up a hotline for Diddy, right? But they set it up. It was the Federal Bureau of Investigations fielding this for Epstein, right? And someone calls in and says, this happened in 94. Let's try to do some common knowledge and thinking. Who was Jay Z at the time in 94? I felt like Jay Z's music popped off in 1996, right? Jay Z in 1994. Like, Jay Z was a hungry, fast-tongued underground rapper, often sporting a bald head. And he appeared as a protege of Big Daddy Kane, right? This is his music video in that time. Now, again, I'm not here to pick sides, and I'm not here to save Jay Z or even convict Jay Z of anything, but I want to make shit make sense. That's my thing. I'm a make shit make sense guy. Jay Z at this point in 1994, that she's alleged that this happened. If this happened then, by the way, the boy Slim, what up? You said what happened at the Academy? You got timed out for what? So let me just get into this real quick. So at this time in 1994, Jay Z is like almost like a protege, right? Like, is he still hanging with DeHaven or whatever that guy's name is? They're saying that he was hanging around Big Daddy Kane, but at that point in 2020 or in 1994, Jay Z in 1994, Jay Z's not nowhere near the mogul that he was by the time this tip gets reported, which is 2019. Right? Remember, Jay-Z, let's categorize, again, and if I'm wrong with Jay-Z's history here, somebody help me out. 1994, Jay-Z's an up-and-coming rapper, looks up to Big. He's hanging with, like, this DeHaven guy, and, we see him with Big Daddy Kane, and I really don't know too much about Jay-Z in 1994. I really don't even want to. See, this video shows a 1994 interview about Jay-Z. Let's watch it.
Yo, peace, you're in the hood with the hip hop forum.
And I'm not trying to shit on this rumor, but I want to make it make sense. I guess I'm asking a question. Would Jay-Z in 1994 be in not necessarily a room, but be in any type of cabal or any type of sex trafficking sting or ring with, who cares, minors or not, but just into sex trafficking with people of the likes of the sitting U.S. attorney, which at the time was William Barr? Would he be around Harvey Weinstein? I don't know. I think that's maybe, partying. Weinstein like to party it? Maybe. The U.S. attorney, though, I'm like, huh? But let's see. Now, what's going to come into play here is people are going to either take these rumors and say this is all factual and these guys are creeps, or Trump is going to actually have some redemption here. Because if some of these rumors are so outlandish that people don't believe it, people might say, in terms of saying to Trump, I see why you said there was nothing credible there. So I know we've wanted these files. Trump at one point said there's nothing there. Well, there's a bunch of allegations still there. It's going to be up on each of us. Do you believe the allegations? And if you do, Jay Z's a fucking creep. If you believe him. If you don't, this is unnecessary lies by maybe a demented person that is sullying his name. This is where you got to make up the decision, right? We're watching this interview. We want to see how Jay Z was rocking in 1994. I just, like, when I think about Jay Z, I think of Reasonable Doubt. Like, that's kind of like his mainstream entrance to me. And in mainstream, somebody said he provided the drugs that on that drug list that maybe Epstein had. You think that Jay did say, like, you know, he lost 92 bricks, right? Like, so he was selling drugs and shit. So you think Jay Z was maybe a drug dealer that sold drugs? Oh, well, actually, if you think about it, Jay Z and Pusha T, what they both have in common is that they've bragged about their drug selling past. Obviously, Pusha T, who hails from Virginia, he's bragged about how much drugs he sold. He's rapped about more cocaine than I think that Pablo Escobar ever sold. You know, so these are kind of like the drug dealer rappers of the time. Did they perhaps serve Epstein or maybe somebody in the entertainment industry? I don't know. But this is Jay in 94. Do you think Jay was still selling drugs at this time?
Lounging here with Jay Z, yo, he just blew up the spot. You know what I'm saying? We over here at Demerara. Yo, you blew up the spot, Jay Z. Yo, you had all your peoples up there. You know what I'm saying? Yo, not all of them. Yeah, there was enough peoples up in there. Yo, how you do this, man? How you get your skills and whatnot? See, yo, what motivates you?
Yeah, let me get this mic. Yo, we come. This is real. You know, we just come through real life experiences and we put it on wax. You know, Brooklyn band is definitely represented tonight. It's nothing false. You know, it's just real. It's easy to do. It's easy to do. It just take from everyday life. True. You know what I mean?
You know, and you had a woman at the end talking about, you know, they won't play your joints on Hot 97 and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? That they won't play your joints on like regular radio. You got to go underground. But I don't feel like, how you feel about that? You know what I'm saying? I feel.
Okay, so he doesn't break mainstream at this point yet. He's making videos like this. Okay. What was Pusha T doing in 1994? It's very important to know, right? What did Pusha T, what was he doing? It was 14 years ago, but 14 years ago it's not enough. 14 years ago is still 2010. We don't have too much. Okay, here we go. This is Pusha T's. What?
And the guys them who's doing I had a separate team. The guys them who I grew up with and the guys them who's doing the music. With that came trying to clean up too. That's why it was always like a hush hush thing. People saying, "Oh man, they ain't really sold no drugs. Oh, Pusha ain't never did that, this and that." Because it's like, what you expect for y'all to see me or to get caught for you to know about it? You know what I'm saying?
Of course. They're being very quiet about it.
They was being very quiet about it, but they ran it up.
They were moving keys for you?
They was moving. I had a separate team.
Wow, interesting. So they were selling drugs supposedly. We just don't know what. Okay, it's very interesting. All right. We're trying to figure this out. Okay. Okay, so let's continue to read. So she said 7 times, this and third, last recall. All right, here we go. So while Weinstein had inserted blah, 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 she believed she was in Epstein's mansion. Okay, so she believed that Weinstein was there, right? Jay Z was there, and clearly, not clearly, but supposedly Epstein was there, right? She said 7 times. This word abduction kind of sounds a bit odd. What do you mean abducted? Abducted? Wonder where was she at when she got abducted. Anyway, So the current, she says, on those occasions, it was Jeffrey. Okay, they recall Leon Black. Who's Leon Black? Leon Black. That's a private equity investor. Huh. CEO of Apollo Global. He's worth $13 billion. Wow. $13 billion. Let's look at some of the companies he owns then. Oh, he did have here we go. Relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He has a part of the Wikipedia about his relationship with Epstein. He had a friendship with the sex offender for his 50th birthday. That was compiled by Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell. Black contributed a handwritten poem and a rhyme scheme, which was an acronym VFPC, which stood for Vanity Fair Poster Child. That was in reference to a profile of Epstein that was being written for the magazine. The poem contained lines, blonde, red, or brunette, spread out geographically. With this net of fish, Jeff's now the old man in the sea. He signed the poem, Loves and Kisses, Leon. Okay, so this guy, look at, there's some shit to this. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Holy. Oh, wow, I can't see this. No, we gotta get into the archives. Wow. This is crazy, y'all. Wow, these are the people who wrote in that book. Love and Kisses. Blonde, red. Wow, okay. Wow. In 2009, Black contributed $60 million in a settlement. Now, if we're trying to we're kind of like doing some research here. Was this guy friends with Jeffrey Epstein in 1994? Now, obviously, these guys are old fucks, or this guy's old. So he probably was. But I'm trying to see like some shit about that year, or maybe something in the 90s. Oh, okay, 1997. He made Epstein one of the original trustees of what is today the Deborah and Leon Black Foundation. Ooh. Okay, so we are seeing, their friendship date back to the 90s. Here's the sexual misconducts. In March 2021, Gazelle Geneva claimed a series of tweets. I was sexually harassed by Black for years and ultimately forced us out of non-disclosure under duress. Black stated he had engaged in consensual affair with her, so he did fuck her. The matter has been resulted in lawsuits and countersuits. They further allege that Black introduced her to convicted Jeffrey Epstein, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and forced her to have sex with him. Her lawsuit against Black was dismissed in 2023. Wow. The law firm that represented Geneva also represented another accuser, Cherry Pearson, who accused Black of raping her in 2001 at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York City. Black denies these claims. On July 25th, 2023, a lawsuit was filed against Black alleging he raped a 16-year-old girl with autism and Down syndrome in Epstein's Manhattan townhouse in 2002. He called the accusations frivolous and sanctionable. Oh, interesting. There's a lot going on here, people. There's a lot going on here. Yeah, this guy is tied in. For the people who want to say this is some lunatic who just made a report, that's why it didn't go anywhere. Do you think this person clearly would have to know about the case? They know a guy who's allegedly accused a bunch. This Leon Black guy. Wow. This is indeed crazy. Weinstein and Pusha T in approximately 2007. Okay, so that's what it was. Okay, here we go. On each occasion, did a bleach with drug cloud in their memory, and it was assigned handlers who would just have friendships with them, and one was known as Pusha T. In 2007, they attended a party following an invitation from an unknown man who approached her as she walked down the street. Weinstein and Pusha T also attended the party and drugged her before engaging in sexual abuse. That should be able to be verifiable. Pusha T party with Weinstein. Yeah, that's where we got to investigate if we want to see if this is maybe have a little bit more, basis in truth. Pusha T, Harvey Weinstein, 2007 party. If they've been to the same party, that might be a little bit odd. Let me look at Pusha T Weinstein event. I'm trying to look in a Wayback Machine, right? It's unverified, they're saying. There's no widely documented public record of Pusha T event, yeah. Okay. Someone says Pusha T was trying to get off Jive in 2007. Were these like industry events? I would guess it would be, right? We need to kind of look into it a little bit more. So-and-so has claimed to have additional information on other persons involved in enterprise and information related to the racketeering conducted in support of the trafficking. So-and-so further believes she was under surveillance and stalked at the direction of the people involved in the sexual abuse. So-and-so confirmed that she was not diagnosed with mental illness, but refused to provide her physical address, advising that she maintained no permanent address, rather she moved between staying at different hotels. So she was a nomad. This is 586. Let's see if we can look at another one. Ooh, let's see, 586. Oh my God. Oh, it's on page 2, I think. 586. No. Oh, there's multiple of them. Oh, so they had all of these for Jesus Christ. This is reports on every call that came in to this tip line. So 586 is down here. It's on the 4th page. Right? Yes. No. Wait, what the fuck? What, did I click on the wrong thing? Or am I stupid? No, EFT. Oh, it's the wrong number. I'm an idiot. How many are these there? Yeah, the numbers are wrong. Next. How many fucking pages is this? Page 8? Let me just open a random one and see what's in these. Are these all about calls? These are inmates. What I got to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Pending investigation or threat. Who the fuck is that? I ain't gonna lie, these files are kind of spooky. Yeah, chat. Okay, so there's just a bunch of shit. It's probably like 1,000,000 pages. Wow. Yeah, this is absolutely real, but like, I don't know where I could find another one. Let me see. Let me look at 587. I'll just go one up. Right, so I'll go one up on the I'm just typing into the URL. 587. Oh, it doesn't exist. Okay, fuck. 588. Or let me do 585. Doesn't exist. Okay. This is interesting. Now, there is so for now, chat, you're gonna have to kind of like, some people are gonna be like, yo, where there's smoke, there's fire. People are gonna be like, how does Jay Z's name keep coming up and he's all innocent? I don't know. That's gonna be some people. Some people are gonna be like, yo, listen, this is complete bullshit. Like, there's no proof of the date of any of these people being together, right? Like, these people never knew each other. It's going to be up on you guys, and probably additional information is going to come out eventually. We do have a interview by Jeffrey Epstein, and after this, we'll kind of try to